Hello, everyone. So this is the third video of a series of 3 videos on risk management for nonprofit organizations. I started with the introduction of risk and risk management as terms and why it is important to manage risk, how you can manage positive risk and negative risk. And in the second video, I briefly explained the framework. We developed ViStA Risk Management Framework. And finally, in today's video, I'm planning to explain some of the practical tools that will help you to implement your risk plans. Because if risk plans are not actionable plans, they are not helpful, they are not useful for the organization. And it's a burden for executive directors and nonprofit leaders like yourself. And so you will find some of those tools very practical and useful. Let me jump to the presentations. So how can we measure risks? You will remember from the previous lecture, we identified 6 categories, and this is just an example to give you an idea, but you need to develop your custom lists, which is not that difficult. But how are you going to measure it? So this is a chart you can easily develop in Excel. This is what we do. And then you collect data from your team members, from your stakeholders, from your board members, from your management team, depending on how broad you want to have it or how narrow you want to have it. You collect data. Everyone tries to fill in those cells. They put numbers between 0 and 10, so security, safety, and health risks. Whatever probability they see, okay? Anything between 0 and 10, what is the impact and how much control do we have? You collect numbers from people and you take the average. If there's a significant difference between the answers, if the gap is huge, then you can go back to those people and say, okay, what made you think that because your opinion is different than everybody else, so can you please justify, can you please validate, or can you explain your reasoning so we can take it into consideration? So this is a kind of survey, but at the end of the survey, you will get the measurements of your risks, the probability, the impact, and the control. But the next stage, so now we have the risk, identified the risk, analyzed the risk. What is the next step? What are we supposed to do? I think this is the most missing component in risk management in nonprofit sector. And so we developed this 6-step tool, ACTIVE, A-C-T-I-V-E, activation, case analysis, team formation, implementation, verification, and ending and evaluation. So E stands for ending and evaluation. So what is activation? Activation is the first step, okay? Just like projects, your risk treatment also need to have a start and ending. Somebody has to say, okay, it's the right time to do something about it. Some risks, they are related to incidents, like there is a big major incident and it triggers a risk, like the change of federal government or the change of local government or an accident. So it triggers a risk treatment process, but still the activation has to be done formally. The project manager or the executive director initiates a risk management process or asks for the decision maker's approval. It's similar to risk identification and requires a brief explanation of existing or potential risks. So what is the risk? You need to identify this at the activation phase. So digital world, for example, is a promising domain for nonprofit organizations, and you want to initiate a risk treatment process, but this time for positive risk. Okay? So there is no incident which tells you, okay, it's the right time to consider in your internet website and your digital social media presence. There is no such thing. So as a decision maker, you are the one who needs to initiate this. who needs to activate this process. And activation is the first step. The second step is case analysis. Okay, let's go to the example of digital presence. It's a positive, it looks like a positive risk, and we activated the process. Now we need to do some case analysis. Once the process is activated, the manager will analyze the case with the staff and the decision makers when needed. Okay, so you can consult with your staff, you can consult with decision makers, higher level, with your board, for example, depending on the scope of the risk. During the case analysis phase, you are supposed to outline the scope of risk management, identify necessary resources and time, and develop a plan with clear milestones and performance indicators. So case analysis basically includes the planning phase of risk, of a particular specific risk. The next phase, the third phase, is team formation. Okay, so you need to form a team to respond to the risk, either negative or positive. But you have two options as a manager. The first option is you can rely on an existing team, like if it is a cybersecurity risk, for example, you can task your IT department, if you have an IT department. If it's a financial risk, then your accounting department can take care of it. But you can also consider forming ad hoc teams, okay? So based on the background of individuals. So we don't have a digital marketing team, but I know one of my friends, she has a background, so she can lead this process. You can form ad hoc teams, temporary teams to deal with risk. The project manager or the executive can be the team leader, okay? So you can be the team leader, or you can assign this task to another person. It depends on the scope and some other factors, but you form the team. Who's the team leader? Who are the team members, and what are their roles? You do this at this stage. The next stage is naturally the implementation. Okay, so the dedicated team, now you have a team, they have plans, they have resources, they will implement the risk management plan in coordination with you or the project manager or other stakeholders and decision makers. And the next stage is verification. Okay, you always need to make sure that you are on the right track. The executive director or the project manager and the team leader will check the progress and verify that the risk management plan is working. Because if it is not working, you don't need to continue until the end, right? So this is why we have this verification phase. And if everything is okay, you continue as is. If there is something wrong, you go to the second phase of active, which was case analysis. You analyze the case again, you do detailed planning, and you may even consider to change your team or team leader and then start the process again. You may prefer to keep some of them as is, like without changing the team, you can change the direction of the team. So verification, if everything works well, means go ahead. If there is something wrong, means go back to case analysis phase. The executive may revise the risk management plan and change the teams when needed, okay? And this verification phase enables decision makers to do that. The final phase, and again, it doesn't have to be successful. It can be unsuccessful too. But there has to be an end, okay? It's like it's the project mindset. You don't start something and you don't know the ending, okay? So let's do some financial risk management. But if there is no end time, it will fail, definitely fail. It's because it's not practical. So once you finish it, you need to take some lessons in a very structured ways. Okay, so at individual level, we take our lessons, but at organizational context, it has to be done in a structured way. The team leader is responsible for preparing an evaluation report to present it to the project manager, okay, or to the executive director, or to the board. So you will decide whether it's big enough to inform the other decision makers and other stakeholders, or if it is small, so you can keep it in the team. So the same active model can be applied to different types of risks: positive risks, negative risks, small risks, or big risk, complicated risk, simple risk, any kind of risks that you can name. Now, I want to spend a couple of more minutes on opportunities, okay, which is the positive aspect, positive side of risk. Unfortunately, our brain prioritizes negative risks, and maybe it is what is necessary, but it shall not remove the filter from our eyes so we can see the positive risks, opportunities. And for nonprofit organizations, there are lots of opportunities. Let me give you one example, okay? So pandemic was terrible, and nearly 5 million people died because of this COVID, and it changed the world significantly. It's probably one of the biggest crises of humankind in the history. But every single crisis brings lots of opportunities with it. So there are lots of opportunities for private sector, lots of opportunities for governments, and lots of opportunities for nonprofit organizations. A promising domain is internet, right? So internet, social media platforms, social networks, they are crazy. And our traditional fundraising, volunteer recruitment channels, they are kind of obsolete. We need to find alternative channels, and internet and social networks seems like an alternative for that. And just to give you an idea, okay, just to give you an idea how positive risk culture might look like. So, okay, now we identified internet as a new domain, and digital social enterprise idea. Okay, so many businesses do that. They use internet to generate more revenue, start new businesses, or implement new business models. Why shouldn't we do that? Why shouldn't nonprofit organizations benefit from the same opportunities? And you can. There are lots of successful examples like shopforgood.ca or onlinefoodbank.ca. Those are social enterprises, and they compete with the private sector in a totally new domain. Internet is not new, but the size and the scope and the complexity and the opportunities of internet changes every day. So thank you for listening. This concludes the three video sessions on risk management for nonprofit organizations. This is my contact information. I'm on LinkedIn. This is my email address. If you have any further questions or comments, more than welcome. I will be happy to have a chat with you and discuss your specific risk management needs. So thank you very much. Bye. And I hope you will succeed in the future and benefit from the opportunities that came with the new era.